The War Council chamber fell silent as Admiral Chin's weathered hands moved across the holographic display, manipulating gravitational fields with the casual ease of a child playing with toys. Around the circular table, representatives from a dozen alien species watched in barely concealed terror as humanity's latest technological marvel bent space itself to their will. What had once been considered impossible physics was now just another tool in the human arsenal, another reminder of why they had risen from forgotten outcasts to the galaxy's most feared rulers. It hadn't always been this way. 3 centuries ago, humanity had been nothing more than a curiosity, a primitive species barely capable of leaving their own solar system. The Galactic Confederation had dismissed them as irrelevant, their potential so limited that most civilizations forgot Earth even existed. When the great powers carved up territories and established trade routes spanning thousands of light years, humanity wasn't even invited to the table. They were the forgotten children of the galaxy, left to scrape by on the edges of known space while superior races built empires among the stars. The Confederation's mistake wasn't ignoring humanity's military might or technological prowess. Their fatal error was underestimating human adaptability and the dangerous creativity that emerges when a species has nothing left to lose. While the established powers grew comfortable in their cosmic hierarchies, humans were learning, evolving, and preparing for a return that would shake the very foundations of galactic civilization. Captain Rodriguez stood at the observation deck of the dreadnought Resilience, watching as human fleets moved through space with an elegance that defied physics. Gravity control technology had changed everything, allowing human ships to dance between stars like leaves on cosmic winds. But the real revolution wasn't in their machines. It was in their mindset. Humanity had learned to think beyond the limitations that constrained other species, to see possibilities where others saw only impossibilities. The turning point had come during the Sector 7 crisis, when a routine diplomatic mission had spiraled into something far more significant. Princess Kala of the Meridian Empire had been captured by raiders, her rescue seeming impossible given the political complexities involved. The Confederation had written her off as acceptable loss, unwilling to risk their carefully maintained balance of power. But humanity, still desperate to prove their worth on the galactic stage, had volunteered for what everyone considered a suicide mission. What happened next had become legend across 1,000 worlds. The human rescue team hadn't just saved the princess. They had dismantled an entire criminal network that had been operating under the Confederation's nose for decades. Their methods had been unconventional, their tactics unprecedented, and their success had sent shockwaves through established power structures. For the first time, the galaxy's major players were forced to acknowledge that these forgotten humans might be more than they appeared. Dr. Yamamoto's fingers danced across quantum processors as she calibrated the newest generation of gravity manipulation systems. Each breakthrough brought humanity closer to technologies that would have been considered magic just generations before. The irony wasn't lost on her that the same species once deemed too primitive for galactic citizenship now possessed capabilities that made ancient civilizations tremble. Human ingenuity, forged in the crucible of cosmic isolation, had produced innovations that transformed science fiction into everyday reality. The princess's gratitude had opened doors that political negotiations never could. Her influence within the Meridian Empire created opportunities for trade, technology exchange, and most importantly, respect. But gratitude was a fragile foundation for galactic politics, and humanity knew they needed something more substantial than royal favor to secure their future among the stars. That something more had come in the form of military necessity. When the Void Syndicate began their expansion into Confederation space, traditional fleets found themselves outmatched by enemy tactics that seemed to ignore known physics. Human forces, with their gravity control systems and unconventional strategies, became the Confederation's most effective weapon against an existential threat. Victory after victory established humanity not as grateful guests, but as indispensable partners in galactic security. Now, As Admiral Chun concluded the tactical briefing, alien delegates struggled to comprehend how quickly the cosmic order had shifted. The species they had once dismissed as irrelevant now controlled technologies that could reshape star systems, commanded fleets that moved like thoughts through space, and possessed a strategic mindset that consistently outmaneuvered opponents with millennia more experience. But success had brought new challenges, and the Admiral's expression suggested that humanity's greatest test still lay ahead. In the depths of space, something ancient was stirring, something that would force even humanity's remarkable adaptability to its absolute limits. The holographic display flickered, revealing intelligence reports that would change everything they thought they knew about their place in the galaxy. The silence stretched uncomfortably as each council member processed what they were seeing. Commander Torres had been running deep space reconnaissance missions for 6 months, pushing human scout ships into uncharted regions where even the oldest galactic maps showed nothing but empty void. What his teams discovered there defied every assumption about the galaxy's history and humanity's role within it. Professor Williams leaned forward, her archaeological expertise suddenly more valuable than any military strategist could have imagined. The artifacts Torres had recovered weren't just ancient. They were impossible. Carbon dating placed them at over 50,000 years old, yet their technology showed clear signs of human engineering principles. Not similar to human technology, but actually built using methods that wouldn't be developed on Earth for another 30 millennia. The implications sent shockwaves through everything they thought they understood about human origins. Either their dating methods were catastrophically wrong, or humanity had somehow influenced galactic development long before they were supposed to exist as a spacefaring species. The artifacts contained gravitational manipulation systems that perfectly matched current human designs, down to microscopic details that should have been unique to Earth-based innovation. Lieutenant Parker stared at the quantum resonance patterns displayed on his workstation, trying to make sense of readings that shouldn't exist. The ancient technology wasn't just advanced, it was specifically tuned to human genetic markers. Whatever civilization had built these devices had done so with intimate knowledge of human DNA, cellular structure, and neural patterns. The level of biological integration suggested a connection that went far deeper than simple technological exchange. Back on the Meridian homeworld, Princess Kala found herself caught between gratitude and growing unease. Her rescue had forged bonds with humanity that her advisors increasingly viewed as dangerous. The humans who had saved her possessed capabilities that her empire's greatest scientists couldn't explain, and their rapid advancement showed no signs of slowing. Intelligence reports suggested that human colonies were appearing in sectors that had been considered uninhabitable, their gravity control systems allowing settlement on worlds that would crush any other known species. The princess had witnessed firsthand how human problem-solving differed from every other civilization she knew, where her people would spend years analyzing a situation from every angle. Humans seemed to instinctively understand solutions that escaped even the most advanced alien minds. Their approach to the impossible wasn't to prove it couldn't be done, but to find ways around the limitations that stopped everyone else. General Harrison stood before a wall of monitors showing human expansion across the galaxy, each new settlement representing capabilities that shouldn't exist. Human terraforming projects were succeeding on worlds where the physics alone should have made life impossible. Their agricultural systems were producing crops in environments that would sterilize traditional farming methods. Most disturbing of all, human children born on these extreme worlds were showing enhanced abilities that previous generations had never possessed. The genetic adaptations weren't random mutations. They followed patterns that suggested purposeful engineering. Human colonists exposed to high-gravity environments weren't just adapting, they were evolving specific traits that seemed designed for those conditions. Scientists studying these changes found genetic markers that appeared to have been dormant for thousands of years, activating only when environmental triggers demanded them. Dr. Singh's research team had been studying these evolutionary patterns when they made their most disturbing discovery. The genetic sequences activating in human colonists weren't new developments. They were ancient, older than recorded human history. Someone or something had embedded these capabilities into human DNA long before Earth civilization had developed writing, let alone space travel. The implication suggested that humanity's recent technological breakthroughs weren't innovations at all, but remembrances of abilities they had always possessed. The Void Syndicate's recent attacks took on new significance in light of these discoveries. Their targets weren't random military installations or trade routes. They were specifically seeking worlds where these ancient artifacts had been found. Each raid followed the same pattern: overwhelming force, surgical extraction of archaeological sites, and complete destruction of any evidence that might remain. Whatever they were looking for, they were willing to destabilize entire sectors to find it. Captain Morrison's intelligence division had been tracking syndicate movements for months, piecing together patterns that suggested knowledge of human capabilities that even humanity didn't fully understand. The enemy wasn't just fighting human military forces. They were actively working to prevent humanity from discovering something that could change the balance of power forever. The most chilling reports came from the Outer Rim territories, where long-range sensors were detecting energy signatures that matched the ancient artifacts. Something vast was awakening in the deep reaches of space, responding to humanity's expansion with patterns that suggested recognition rather than random activation. Whatever had left those artifacts 50,000 years ago was still out there, and humanity's return to prominence was drawing its attention back to the galaxy. Admiral Chun received the emergency transmission at 0347 hours. The message so urgent that it bypassed all standard protocols. Commander Torres's voice crackled through subspace static, his usual calm replaced by barely controlled panic. His deep space reconnaissance fleet had stumbled upon something that defied every assumption about the galaxy's structure. A massive construct, easily the size of a small moon, had materialized in the previously empty Kepler void, its surface covered in the same impossible human-derived technology they'd been finding in archaeological sites. The construct wasn't dead space debris from some forgotten civilization. Every sensor reading confirmed it was actively powered, its energy output registering levels that would require the combined power generation of 50-star systems. Even more disturbing, the structure was moving with purpose, following trajectories that would bring it into contact with major human colonies within weeks. The gravity distortions it generated were so intense that nearby space itself seemed to bend around its presence. Dr. Williams felt her blood turn cold as she analyzed the construct's architecture. The design principles weren't just similar to human engineering. They were human engineering, but executed on a scale that current human civilization couldn't even imagine. Whoever had built this structure possessed not only intimate knowledge of human technology, but capabilities that surpassed anything humanity had achieved by several orders of magnitude. The implications were staggering and terrifying in equal measure. General Harrison's war room erupted into controlled chaos as reports flooded in from across human space. The construct's appearance hadn't gone unnoticed by the galaxy's other powers, and their reactions ranged from panic to outright hostility. The Meridian Empire was demanding immediate explanations that humanity simply couldn't provide. The Confederation was mobilizing their largest battle fleets, treating the construct as a potential threat to all galactic civilization. Most alarming of all, the Void Syndicate had suddenly ceased all military operations and begun a frantic retreat toward the galaxy's edge. Their withdrawal wasn't strategic. It was desperate flight from something that terrified even them. Intelligence suggested they possessed knowledge about the construct that they were keeping from everyone else, knowledge that made their usual predatory behavior seem insignificant by comparison. Princess Kala found herself at the center of a political maelstrom that threatened to tear apart the fragile alliances humanity had built. Her own advisors were pressuring her to distance the Meridian Empire from their human allies, viewing the construct as proof that humanity represented an existential threat to galactic stability. The princess faced an impossible choice between honoring her debts to the humans who had saved her life and protecting her people from whatever was emerging from the deep void. Captain Rodriguez received orders that made his hands shake as he read them. His ship, along with every available human vessel, was being recalled to form a defensive perimeter around Earth. The gravity control systems that had given humanity such advantages in previous conflicts suddenly seemed pathetically inadequate against whatever was approaching. Even worse, preliminary scans suggested the construct was specifically seeking human settlements, moving with the precision of a hunter tracking familiar prey. Professor Singh's genetic research took on horrifying new significance as she studied the construct's energy signatures. The massive structure was broadcasting on frequencies that matched the dormant genetic markers found in human DNA. It wasn't just seeking humans, it was calling to them, activating biological responses that had been locked away for 50,000 years. Human colonists across the galaxy were reporting strange dreams, unexplained urges to travel toward the construct, and physiological changes that their medical teams couldn't explain. Lieutenant Parker's quantum resonance equipment began picking up transmissions from the construct that defied every known law of physics. The signals weren't random. They contained patterns that resembled human language structures, but evolved to a complexity that would require thousands of generations to develop. Whatever intelligence controlled the construct was attempting to communicate, but the message was so advanced that human science couldn't even begin to decode its meaning. The situation reached critical mass when long-range sensors detected additional energy signatures awakening throughout the galaxy. The first construct hadn't come alone. It was part of a network that had been dormant for millennia, and humanity's technological advancement was triggering a galaxy-wide activation sequence. Ancient structures were powering up in sectors that hadn't seen intelligent life for thousands of years, all of them following convergent paths toward human space. Admiral Chun stood before the largest holographic display ever assembled, watching as tactical projections showed the approaching crisis from every possible angle. The construct arrival would occur in less than 72 hours, and humanity had no idea whether they were facing salvation or annihilation. Every decision made in the next 3 days would determine not just humanity's fate, but the future of every species in the galaxy. The first shock came at 1200 hours when Drive Williams burst into the command center, her face pale with a discovery that would shatter everything they thought they knew about the situation. Her archaeological team had finally succeeded in translating portions of the ancient artifacts, and the results were beyond disturbing. The constructs weren't alien technology at all. They were human creations from a forgotten chapter of Earth's history, built by a previous human civilization that had somehow been erased from all records. The translation revealed fragments of historical accounts describing a golden age of human expansion that occurred 50,000 years before recorded history. This ancient human empire had possessed technology that made current human achievements look primitive by comparison. They had mastered not just gravity control, but dimensional manipulation, time dilation fields, and energy systems that could power entire star clusters. Their empire had spanned multiple galaxies, with Earth serving as the administrative center of a cosmic federation. Captain Torres's reconnaissance data suddenly made horrifying sense when viewed through this new lens. The constructs weren't responding to humanity's current expansion. They were returning home after an absence that had lasted longer than most species' entire evolutionary histories. The genetic markers found in modern humans weren't evidence of alien interference, but inherited memories from ancestors whose capabilities had been deliberately suppressed through some unknown catastrophe. General Harrison's analysis of the Void Syndicate's behavior revealed the second devastating twist. The criminal organization wasn't just another galactic threat. They were the descendants of the force that had destroyed the original human empire. Intelligence reports showed that Syndicate technology incorporated design elements specifically engineered to counter advanced human capabilities. Their entire existence revolved around preventing humanity from reclaiming the power that had once made them the galaxy's dominant species. The Syndicate's recent withdrawal wasn't retreat. It was preparation for a final assault designed to eliminate humanity before the returning constructs could restore their species to its former glory. Intercepted communications revealed that they possessed weapons specifically designed to target the genetic markers that made humans unique, biological warfare systems that could sterilize entire human populations while leaving other species unharmed. Princess Kala received intelligence that forced her to make the most difficult decision of her reign. Her empire's archives, sealed for millennia and accessible only to the royal bloodline, contained records of the ancient human empire's fall. The documents described a war so devastating that it had required the combined efforts of dozens of species to bring down humanity's cosmic dominion. The Meridian Empire hadn't just been a witness to that ancient conflict. They had been one of its primary instigators. The princess faced a choice that would define her legacy and her people's future. She could honor the ancient alliance that had once freed the galaxy from human rule, supporting the Void Syndicate's efforts to prevent humanity's return to power. Or she could stand with the humans who had saved her life, knowing that doing so might restore a species whose previous empire had treated other civilizations as subjects rather than equals. Dr. Singh's genetic research revealed the most terrifying aspect of humanity's returning capabilities. The dormant DNA sequences weren't just reactivating. They were evolving, adapting to modern conditions in ways that suggested the original human empire had built adaptive mechanisms into their species' very genetic structure. Modern humans weren't just remembering ancient abilities. They were developing new capabilities that surpassed even their ancestors' achievements. The construct approaching human space began broadcasting more complex signals as it drew closer, and the messages were becoming increasingly urgent. Translation efforts suggested it was trying to warn humanity about something approaching from outside the galaxy, a threat so severe that even the ancient human empire had been forced to retreat rather than face it directly. The constructs weren't weapons of conquest. They were defensive systems, returning to protect humanity from an enemy that was following in their wake. Long-range sensors began detecting energy signatures beyond the galaxy's edge that matched known technology, human or otherwise. Whatever had forced the ancient human empire into hiding was returning, and it had spent 50,000 years growing stronger. The Void Syndicate's desperate actions suddenly made sense. They weren't trying to prevent human domination. They were trying to keep humanity weak before a threat that viewed both humans and their former enemies as equally insignificant obstacles. Admiral Chen realized that the approaching constructs represented not just humanity's potential salvation, but the galaxy's only hope of survival against something that had once driven the most advanced civilization in known history into exile and amnesia. The next 48 hours would determine whether humanity could reclaim enough of their forgotten power to face an enemy that had been preparing for this moment across 500 centuries of patient waiting. The moment of truth arrived with devastating suddenness. Admiral Chun watched from the bridge of his flagship as the massive construct settled into orbit above Earth, its presence causing gravitational distortions that made the planet's oceans surge with unprecedented tides. The structure's hull began to shift and change, revealing docking ports that matched human ship designs with impossible precision. Whatever intelligence controlled the construct was inviting them aboard, and Chen knew that humanity's future hung on his decision to accept or refuse that invitation. Captain Rodriguez led the first boarding party, his team equipped with every sensor and weapon humanity could provide. What they found inside the construct shattered every assumption about their species' history. The corridors were designed for human proportions, the controls responded to human genetic signatures, and the central chamber contained a vast library of human knowledge that spanned technologies, sciences, and philosophies that current civilization had never imagined. The construct's artificial intelligence activated as they approached the central core, its voice speaking in ancient dialects that somehow felt familiar to every human present. It identified itself as Keeper 7, one of 12 guardian systems left behind to protect humanity during their forced exile. The AI's revelations came in a flood of information that rewrote human history in real time. The ancient human empire hadn't been destroyed by the Void Syndicate's ancestors. They had orchestrated their own disappearance to prevent the galaxy from being consumed by something far worse. Dr. Williams felt her archaeological worldview collapse as Keeper 7 revealed the truth about humanity's exodus. The ancient empire had detected the approach of the Devourers, a species that consumed entire galaxies by converting all matter into energy for their cosmic machinery. Rather than fight a war they couldn't win, humanity's ancestors had chosen to hide, scattering their people across primitive worlds and suppressing their own genetic memories to avoid detection by entities that tracked advanced civilizations through their technological signatures. The Devourers were returning, and long-range sensors confirmed their approach through the void between galaxies. The enemy had spent 50,000 years consuming everything in their path, growing stronger with each civilization they absorbed. Now, they had detected the recent spike in galactic technology and were coming to claim this galaxy as their next feeding ground. Humanity's rise to prominence had inadvertently announced the galaxy's location to predators that viewed all life as nothing more than potential fuel. General Harrison coordinated the emergency response as Keeper 7 activated the other 11 constructs scattered throughout human space. Each Guardian system contained weapons and defensive technologies that could potentially hold back the Devourer advance, but only if humanity could unlock their genetic potential quickly enough to operate systems designed for their evolved ancestors. The process was dangerous. Many humans would die as their dormant capabilities activated too rapidly for their bodies to handle. Princess Kala made her choice in the most dramatic moment of the crisis. Despite her empire's ancient grievances against humanity, she ordered the Meridian Fleet to support human defensive positions. Her public broadcast of the galaxy was heard by billions as she revealed her people's shameful history and declared that past mistakes couldn't be allowed to doom the future. The princess had chosen to stand with the humans who had saved her, knowing that their survival was now linked to everyone's survival. The Void Syndicate's final gambit came as the Devourers entered the galaxy's outer rim. Rather than attack humanity directly, they activated ancient weapons hidden throughout Confederation space, systems they had placed during their ancestors' war against the human empire. The devices were designed to create massive subspace rifts that would accelerate the Devourer's approach while simultaneously crippling human defensive preparations. But the unexpected twist came when the weapons activated. The Syndicate's leaders watched in horror as their ancient technology turned against them, revealing that humanity's ancestors had anticipated this betrayal thousands of years ago. Every Syndicate weapon had been secretly modified to serve as a component in humanity's ultimate defense system. The criminal organization had spent millennia unknowingly building the very network that would save the galaxy from the approaching threat. Admiral Chun felt the weight of cosmic responsibility as he gave the order to activate the complete defense grid. Across the galaxy, human descendants began their transformation into something their ancestors had always intended them to become. The genetic locks dissolved, and humanity stepped forward to reclaim their role as the galaxy's guardians, armed with the knowledge that their greatest enemy had just become their unwitting ally in the fight for survival. The transformation wasn't gentle. Captain Rodriguez watched from the medical bay as thousands of humans across the fleet underwent the genetic awakening that would unlock their species' true potential. Some didn't survive the process, their bodies unable to handle the rapid evolution from baseline human to something approaching their ancestors' capabilities. But those who emerged from the transformation possessed abilities that made their previous technological achievements seem like children's toys. Dr. Williams found herself changed in ways that went far beyond physical enhancement. Her mind could now process archaeological data at speeds that would have taken her previous self years to accomplish. The ancient artifacts that had puzzled her for months revealed their secrets instantly, showing her a complete picture of humanity's cosmic heritage. She understood now that every human who had ever felt drawn to the stars, every person who had dreamed of exploring the unknown, had been responding to genetic memories of their species' true nature. The Devourer fleet arrived at the galaxy's edge exactly as Keeper 7 had predicted. Their ships were unlike anything any species had encountered, massive constructs that seemed to bend reality around them as they moved. They didn't communicate or negotiate. They simply began the process of converting entire star systems into the exotic matter that powered their incomprehensible technology. Whole civilizations vanished in hours as the Devourers methodically consumed everything in their path. General Harrison coordinated humanity's response from a command center that now spanned multiple dimensions, his enhanced awareness allowing him to track battlefield developments across thousands of light years simultaneously. The human defense grid activated with precision that would have been impossible before the transformation. Ancient weapons systems came online throughout the galaxy, many of them built into the very infrastructure of civilizations that had never known of their existence. Princess Kala stood with human forces as the first major engagement began, her decision to trust humanity vindicated as she watched their defensive systems hold back an enemy that had consumed dozens of galaxies. The Meridian Empire's fleets fought alongside human ships in battles that rewrote the physics of warfare. Gravity itself became a weapon as human commanders learned to manipulate space-time with the same ease their ancestors had once moved through normal space. The Void Syndicate's leadership faced the ultimate irony as their carefully planned weapons became humanity's greatest assets. Their attempts to sabotage the defense grid only strengthened it, revealing additional systems they hadn't known existed. The criminal organization found themselves fighting alongside the species they had spent generations trying to destroy, their survival now dependent on humanity's success against the Devourers. The turning point came when Dr. Singh's research revealed the Devourers' critical weakness. They could only consume matter that existed in normal space-time, but humanity's dimensional manipulation abilities allowed them to phase entire star systems out of the enemy's reach. What had seemed like an unstoppable force of cosmic destruction became manageable as human commanders learned to hide entire civilizations in pocket dimensions until the threat passed. Lieutenant Parker's quantum resonance equipment detected the moment when the Devourer fleet began its retreat. The enemy had encountered something they couldn't process or consume, a species that could exist partially outside their understanding of reality. For the first time in their cosmic existence, the Devourers faced an opponent that could match their technological superiority with abilities that transcended their operational parameters. Admiral Chun received the final reports as the last Devourer construct vanished beyond the galactic rim. Humanity had not only survived the ultimate test, but had evolved into something capable of protecting the galaxy from threats that previous civilizations couldn't even comprehend. The species that had been dismissed as irrelevant primitives had become the guardians of cosmic civilization itself. The aftermath brought changes that would reshape galactic society for millennia to come. The Confederation restructured itself around humanity's new role as protectors, with species that had once dismissed human potential now seeking their guidance and protection. Princess Kala's brave stand during the crisis led to a new age of cooperation between the Meridian Empire and human space, founded on mutual respect rather than political necessity. The Void Syndicate dissolved as an organization, its members either choosing to serve in humanity's expanded defensive forces or facing justice for their previous crimes. The galaxy's criminal underworld found itself without its most powerful patron, leading to a period of unprecedented peace and stability across civilized space. Humanity had learned the most important lesson of their cosmic journey, that sometimes being forgotten and dismissed can be the greatest gift a species can receive. Their exile had given them time to grow, to develop, and to become something greater than their ancestors had ever been. They had built an empire not through conquest, but through sacrifice, earning their place as the galaxy's guardians by proving they were willing to risk everything to protect others. The humans who had once been banished and forgotten now stood as the eternal watchers, ensuring that the galaxy would never again face annihilation alone.